you can influence what happens at the local level. You may feel disconnected from Lansing, you may feel alienated from Washington, but you can change what happens at the local level. And I also mean to be able to influence your school boards. You think our budget at $20 million is a decent size? The Rochester Community Schools, and Jeremy here is an advocate for watching what they're doing, is closer to $150 million. So, that's a different subject. This is, local government, but get involved at the local level. You can make a difference. And if you demand that government work within its means, it can. You just have to have the right leadership there to demand that it happen. So I appreciate you coming today and listening to this. We've got more work to do in Rochester, but I just wanted to use that as an example that it can be done with your help. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone had a great lunch. My name is Simon Haddad. Some of you may know me as the first conservative to run for the newly created bureaucratic position in Macomb County of Macomb County Executive in the last election cycle. I've got a little bit different take on politics, possibly, than some others. Like my two counterparts, I want to encourage anyone who finds the calling appropriate to run for office. For me, running for office was purely a vehicle to achieve an outcome, which was to help provide sustainable and affordable public services for my family and for my neighbors. We all understand the necessity and the meaning of public services. We all know that we need a police force. We all know that we need a fire department. We all want to know that when we dial 911, that whatever our personal emergency is, it's going to be addressed in an appropriate manner. I guess where there's a disconnect as of recent, and this is probably not the case in the mayor's municipality, but in most other municipalities, when they talk about public safety, the talk has shifted. The conversation has shifted from why we're providing the service in the first place. The talk has shifted from providing the service efficiently and with the highest quality to how much revenue can this generate for my town or my city. Well, when the primary purpose of the public service becomes just generating revenue, well, they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. And I honestly believe that as citizens, as residents, as parents, our primary reason for paying those taxes and wanting those public services is not to generate revenue to feed the government bureaucratic beast. So now that we've identified the core purpose of what public services are actually there for, which is to provide a meaningful service to the residents, the next question is, how do we do that cost effectively? And that question's been completely sidestepped by most municipalities. Jeff's municipality is the exception to the rule more so than the norm, especially here in Michigan. How do you get your message out there? How do you get people to listen to you? Well, you have to become an interface. You have to become evangelical, so to speak. And I guess the mood in the room serves that purpose. On your pew, you'll see a supplemental hymnal that I place intermittently on there. It's this single-page handout. It's two-sided. It's an excerpt from a website that I created called affordablepublicservice.com. This website was created by me to provide residents in my community, and now it's expanding exponentially. It's actually the requests for me to expand it are coming in faster than my ability to research and put the data up. It started out as something just to inform residents in my hometown of Clinton Township, Michigan, about alternatives to what the elected officials are providing in terms of options for public services for residents. As the mayor pointed out, a lot of times you'll get government officials telling you that if you don't pay this millage, we're going to have to lay people off. You're not going to have firemen. You'll be blackballed by your insurance company. You won't be able to get fire insurance. One side of the handout has some myths on it. It's an excerpt from the myths tab on my website. And what it does is it gives you a lot of the one-liners that Jeff, I'm sure, has heard countless times, and many of you have heard countless times from elected officials in your communities. And it gives you solutions and ways to overcome some of those concerns, because I honestly believe that, like me, your primary desire is to have the best, highest quality public service, whether it's trash pickup, whether it's road paving, whether it's snow plowing, whether it's police, whether it's fire, 911, EMS. You want that service, but you want it at the lowest cost possible. And you want to know that your taxes aren't going to be so high that they're going to chase other family-minded or quality residents from your community, and that they're not going to make your community taboo to business, which is what's occurring in Clinton Township. Briefly, I just want to share with you something I call the tale of two townships. I live in Clinton Township. It's a township of about 95,000 people. It's one of, if not the largest township in Michigan. Right next door to Clinton Township is Macomb Township, which was a third the size of Clinton Township at the last census. Macomb Township, however, has done their diligence. They've provided a quality public service system to their residents at 70% lower cost than residents in Clinton Township pay for those same services. Now, you'll get the naysayers. You'll get the union heads. You'll get the head of the local fire union. He'll bring in a bunch of out-of-towners that'll come in and tell you that if you don't have a full-time career fire department, that it's not as good as a career fire department supplemented with a volunteer fire department, or supplemented with an on-call fire department. Well, that's for each of you to decide. But the new census figures just came out, as the mayor here alluded to. And while Clinton Township's population increased by less than 1%, neighboring Macomb Township's population increased by 58%. Part of the reason for that, I honestly believe, is due to their much lower tax structure. Their ability to provide a higher quality of living to their residents at a lower cost is giving them an advantage over other neighboring communities. And as an elected official, the mayor here also has to keep that in mind with how he sets his tax policies. So that brings me to the next thing. How do you enact change in your local area? What do you do? Well, I've approached elected officials in many communities, not just my own. And the first thing I hear is, I need a majority to make things happen. It's not just one vote. And you know what? In most cases, they're right. And a lot of that is where you guys come in. It involves you guys working to inform and educate your neighbors and cutting to the chase, not allowing the argument to become diluted or convoluted, and making sure that you keep things factual and you don't stray from what the primary purpose of what you're doing is, which is to keep government limited, keep government from becoming a competitor to private industry and private business, and make sure that public opinion is on the side of providing those services and keeping the core purpose of government in check. Now, there are many ways to do that. You can lobby some of the members on your board. In my case in Clinton Township, I have a Republican supervisor and 6 Democrat trustees, 3 of whom are pretty much in the hip pocket of the local unions. Now, while they're entitled to maintain their perspective, obviously because the vast majority of the government employees, at least in Clinton Township, are unionized, there is definitely a reason for some of those elected officials to side with those unionized employees. Now, does that mean that they're bad people? No, not at all. It just means that they don't share our core reason for government's existence. So I'd start by reaching out to them, reaching out to your city council, your board of trustees, whatever form of government you have in your municipality, and have an earnest discussion with them about things like consolidation. For example, the mayor here just pointed out that, while there's some talk of consolidation, very little of that has occurred. And some of that is due to the fact that there probably hasn't been enough public outcry in his community or in any other community to push that forward, to push it over the edge. And that's where we come in. Whether it's creating your own website, whether it's signing petitions, whatever it is. But the first step is reaching out to your local elected officials, and not just one of them, all of them. Reaching out to your friends and neighbors, organizing. You have to become organized and you have to become unified. And those things don't cost any money. They just take a little time and a little effort. On my website, affordablepublicservice.com, I have a guest book. Any of you who want ideas, suggestions, help with getting organized in your own community or finding out how much you're even paying for public services, I'm happy to help. I've become known for being one of the first citizens to actually read entire collective bargaining agreements cover to cover and breaking down some of the legal mumbo jumbo in plain English and making it easy for people to understand how their tax dollars are being misused. That's another thing that we have to do as responsible citizens. We have to sift through all the BS and come to grips with what the true cost of providing the service is. What is it really costing us? What are we paying as taxpayers for fire, for police? If we're paying $10, how can the township next door provide the same service for $2? What are we doing wrong? What can we do to cut our costs? And you know what? Those are all logical questions. It doesn't mean you have to be a Republican or a Democrat to ask that. You just have to be someone with a calculator. Because on every calculator I've seen, 2 plus 2 is 4. But in government, 2 plus 2 equals 7 or 9 or 13 or whatever number they want it to equal. So it's up to you to trigger reality. On the back side of the handout that's on the pews, I also have some suggested solutions. Now, I had a discussion the other night with some residents in a nearby community to mine. I offered my help. And they're discussing whether or not their community should offer transport. The local fire department wants to include transport in the services that they offer. And in their particular situation, based on how their current collective bargaining agreements are structured, I don't know that that makes sense. Does that mean that transport is a bad thing? No, because transport works in Rochester. The difference is that in that municipality, their government has enacted the proper cost containment to make all those services viable. And that's what we have to become. We have to become emissaries of reason. We have to become professors of cost containment. It's in our best interest. And as long as you keep your debate and discord reasonable and factual, the opposition's attempt to marginalize you will not succeed. And believe me, I've been doing this since before it was newsworthy or popular to do it. There have been numerous attempts to marginalize my attempts to bring this to the surface. And they've all failed because I keep my discourse professional, factual, and I don't make it personal. And I encourage you all to do the same. In reading some of the collective bargaining agreements that I've had the privilege of viewing, I also discovered another thing, which is that most of the unions, local at all levels of government, are using our governmental infrastructure for free. So while many elected officials are calling for sacrifice, they're calling for everybody to pitch in and do their fair share, well, the only ones that have somehow managed to become exempt from that are the labor unions. And I'm not talking about the rank and file. I'm talking about the union organization itself. They're receiving free administrative services from most of our governments. Our governments are invoicing, withholding, and remitting union dues to the union for free. But many of those same governments are probably charging most of you as taxpayers an administrative fee to collect your property tax money. The other piece of hypocrisy is if you would ask your treasurer, what are they charging your local school district to remit their portion of the property taxes? In most cases, they're charging local school districts less than 30 cents per residence to remit taxes, but they're charging taxpayers hundreds of dollars to collect taxes. So I would encourage all of you who are paying administrative fees on your taxes to look into that. Contact your local treasurer. Ask him, what is he charging your school district to remit the taxes collected on your property? And if it's anything less